My name is Gene, and I, too, am an alcoholic. And I haven't found it necessary to put a needle in my arm, chop a line or two, smoke a joint, or take a drink since Memorial Day of 1964, and I'm thankful to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and people like you. In identifying myself as an alcoholic, I base that identification on my interpretation of the definition of the word alcoholic as it's defined in the 3rd chapter of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, wherein it says that we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. And that's all it says. It makes no reference to how much you drank, what you drank, where you drank, or what happened as a result of your drinking. It doesn't say in order to qualify as an alcoholic or a member of AA, you got to drink wine, go to Skid Row, go to jail, spend time in institutions, and marry the same woman 2 or 3 times. Those things can happen to a lot of people, you know. Generally do. I'd certainly be remiss not to thank the committee for inviting me here. Got the living hell scared out of me. That big Ricky and that Carl met me at the airport when I didn't know whether I was going to get greeted or mugged, for Christ's sake. It looked like Sanford and Son standing there. You ever see that Ricky at the airport, you don't know whether he's a man or it's another plane coming in. But it certainly is nice to be here, you know, and I've been in Texas a few times before, and I've always enjoyed coming down here. Texans are a lively bunch of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've always had a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed myself here. You got a brand of AA and a quality of AA that's just as good as any place in the country, but you seem to have a little bit more vitality to put behind it, and you really raise a lot of hell and have a lot of fun. And I'm a firm believer in that, you know. If we can't laugh, you know, to hell, but I'd rather go back to drinking, you know. I didn't get sober to dry up, you know. I don't really know why I'm an alcoholic. Never took too much time to find out why I'm an alcoholic. I accept the definition that I crossed over that invisible line. And somehow, sometime, I lost the ability to control my drinking. I've attributed a lot of things to why I became an alcoholic. But I don't have an education, so it's been hard for me to investigate that any further. I don't have a formal education. I'm getting more of an education tonight because I'm sitting alongside of a school teacher down here, and I've learned more about that than I did in 12 years in the elementary school division in the city of New York. I got to tell the guys something. I know Texas is a great state for high school football, and as I was leaving my home, I live up in what they call the wine country of California. I don't live in Southern California, and we people up north always try to get that straight right off the bat, you know. I live 80 miles north of San Francisco in what's called the Napa Valley. It's a very small, little picturesque place, sort of an enchanting place. If any of you see a television series called Falcon Crest, that's where I live, you know. And we have our little AA groups there, you know, 10 or 12 people, but we have the same problems that you do and same kind of sobriety, and I love it there just as much as I'm sure you love Texas. But leaving there yesterday morning, going towards San Francisco, I had to drive through one of our more affluent counties in California called Marin County. That's land of hot tubs and peacock feathers and all that sort of jazz. And I'm a stonemason by trade, and I've been in the construction business all my life, so I'm still, you know, even though I've been retired a long time, I'm still always interested in construction projects, and I usually stop when I go by a large one to just look it over, make sure they're doing it right and things like that. And I went past this construction project, and was obviously they were building some kind of a school, and there was a sign right out in front of it. And mind you, now I'm thinking of coming down to Texas the same day, and high school football in Texas, and big tough guys in Texas, you know. And there's this sign announcing the construction of this high school, and it says, "Future site of the Florette W. Pennington High School." Jesus Christ. Can you imagine telling somebody you go to Florette W. Pennington High School? The logo on their football helmets must be a pink canary, you know? Because, the high school I went to in New York, I didn't even have a name, It had a number, If it had a name, it would have been something like Lucky Luciano Tech, Al Capone Prep, Driver's education in our high school was how to leave the scene of an accident. I know how you black guys feel. I was the only white guy in a black basketball team. They called me Spot, President of the senior class was a guy by the name of Vito. That ought to tell you the whole thing right then and there, I had a hell of a time in school, though. That was my problem with education. I didn't get to go through school like normal kids do. I got placed in what the New York State Board of Regents refers to as special education. Nowadays they call it welcome back Connor, and I stayed in the same room for about 8 years, and depending upon which came first, smoking or dating the teacher, decided when you was going to get out, And the day finally came when they moved me up onto the high school level. And I'll never forget that because it was a very traumatic experience. Because the day before you had to actually go to the classes, they had you in there to sort of fill out your schedule, And they told me that it was a requirement of the New York State Board of Regents that every high school student had to take a foreign language. Now, what seems strange to me about that was I had been getting F in English for 8 years, I sort of entertained the thought that if I learned the foreign language, that's where I was going to go, And my older brother Jack was along with me that day, and we looked it over, and I can't really recall what the choices were. I think it was something like German, French, Spanish, and I don't know what else, some other one, but they were all a mystery to me, and I'm a little Irish Roman Catholic, so of course as a little boy I served on the altar of our church, so I know a little of Latin. I know the Latin of the Mass, I know the Confiteor and a few things like that. So my brother wisely, and sort of constructively said, your best shot, would be to take Spanish, because it's a little bit like Latin. You don't have a chance with the other. So as a freshman, I took Spanish 1. And as a sophomore, I took Spanish 1. And as a junior, I took Spanish 1, and I was still taking Spanish 1 when I was a senior. And that was in 1941, prior to World War II. And I split from high school when I was 16 years old and enlisted with a fake baptismal certificate in the United States Marines. And I lost my virginity in a house of ill repute in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And I learned more Spanish that night than I did in the whole 4 years in that service. The only reason I don't tell you that to be vulgar or obscene or anything like that. I tell you that for a very valid reason. That was to come along later on in my life. And I swear on my life that this is true. That when the time came for me as it came for you to come to this program or die, if this program called Alcoholics Anonymous had been anything other than a program of the sharing of personal experiences between one alcoholic and another, if it had been anything else than that, I'd be dead today. If this had been a program where I had to come in here and read the 5th chapter and then come back on Friday and take a 20-question true and false question, I'd be back on Chicago Skid Row. Or if it was a question and answer deal where I had to memorize chapter 3 and write a 500-word written composition on it, I'd be back in the penitentiary. If it had been anything other than the sharing of these experiences, I never would have been here. I never would have been here. Because I could not understand the writing in this program. I have been blessed, and am still blessed, by the men who worked with me, the 3 men who worked with me right from the beginning. Thank God that they weren't like, unfortunately, and this is not a put down, some of the people I see today who work with the young people. The men who worked with me never told me to do anything. They didn't say, you got to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. They said, we are going to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Yeah. They didn't say, you've got to go home and read the book. They said, we are going to go over to your house and read the book. Those men walked me through the book Alcoholics Anonymous because I couldn't understand the words. I'll never forget the first time I saw that passage in the third chapter where it says, where the persistent, not the persistent, it says, in time it will lead to pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. And I figure, what in the hell kind of words are those for a winehead like me to understand, you know? Anything past 2 syllables and I'm gone, you know. And the whole book seemed to be full of words like that to me. But these men patiently walked me through that book. As I say, I don't know why I'm an alcoholic. I believe we're all alcoholics for the same reason. We drank, you know, obviously. But why, they say? Why do intelligent people like you and I generally wind up in a situation where we become so dependent on the drug of our choice, whether it be alcohol or drugs other than alcohol, where we're willing to forfeit everything we hold in life dearly for it, you know? It's probably one of the strangest phenomena that are in the country today. You can almost prove it right here tonight, you know, how strange our malady is, how strange our illness is. Because I'm going to say something now that I hope doesn't put a damper on your festivities here, but, you know, I've never been known as a guy that had too much tact, and I like to tell it how it is, so, you know, and I don't like to forget how it is. You know, we have to accept, perhaps, that, here I go, everybody in this room tonight is not finished drinking. You know that, and I know that. And that's not because of any wisdom on our part, that's just how it is. There's a lady over there looking daggers at me. Lady, I didn't make those words up. They're in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're in that portion of the 5th chapter, written approximately 52 years ago. And in case you haven't gotten that far in the book, I'll quote it for you. It says, quote, despite all that we can say, many who are real alcoholics, by every form of self-deception and experimentation, will try to prove themselves the exception to the rule. That's just how it's been. It says many of us have participated in countless vain attempts trying to prove that we were like other people. And I was one of those people. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 24 years old. And the only thing striking about that was the very first time that I was introduced to AA, the spiritual experiences began to take place in my life. And that's the only way that I believe I can explain them to you or anybody else today. For instance, look at this. I was building a high school. The company I was working with was building a high school in a place called Rochelle, Illinois. Big school, big project, and I was the ramrod on the job, you know, and I got all these bricklayers working for me and stuff like that, and I'm a young guy fresh back from the war and all of that kind of stuff, you know, doing my thing, you know, raising hell, you know. And I had gotten into the custom. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. Wasn't even interested in being an alcoholic. I'd never been in jail, in the hospital. My marriage wasn't being threatened. I was raising 3 little boys at the time. Built my own home. Things appeared to be good in my life. And always wanted to have fun, you know. And I was building this high school, and it kept me away from home during the week. So every weekend I'd go home and get drunk and then go back to work on Monday and stay in this town for the rest of the week. Well, I had gotten in a habit on Monday mornings in the wintertime of stopping halfway up to Rochelle in a little bar to get a couple of drinks. It wasn't morning-type drinking where I needed to drink. It just seemed that we were working in the winter, and everybody around us, a lot of the roofers and a lot of the tile men and everybody was putting brandy in their thermos bottles, and a lot of guys had a drink, and nobody seemed to get excited about it. And so I got taken a couple of drinks, you know, in my thermos bottle, my coffee. And although I'd have a couple of drinks while he was filling it up, too, you know. And so I had done this for maybe 10 to 12 mornings in a row, 12 Monday mornings in a row. And then one Monday I walked into this bar. Oh, it was at 6 o'clock in the morning, only one in there, me and the guy that was cleaning up. And there were some other people in there. There was 3 young ladies of the evening and 2 salesmen-looking type. And it was obvious to me that they were on a party, weekend deal, and we're still partying up, having a big old time. And I went down the other end of the bar, put my lunch bucket up in the bar, waiting for the guy to take the thermos out, and bam, bam, a shot came right in front of me, just like that. And bartender says, it's on that guy up there. Thanks a lot, friend. And I took it. Bang, he filled it right back up again. That's on the other guy up there. Thanks a lot, friend. Give them both a couple of drinks, Boom, boom. And then it became obvious to me. I wasn't dumb. There was 3 women and 2 guys. They needed help. And for no immature reason, I wasn't emotionally upset. I wasn't on a downer. I wasn't looking for space. I just knew that it would be a hell of a lot better having fun than going to work. So I says to the bartender, you hold my lunch bucket till I come back. Not realizing that wasn't going to be for 3 days. And I wound up in an Amish colony in Iowa. With the executive secretary of the Parker Pen Company from Janesville, Wisconsin. Have no idea who the hell she was. She didn't know who the hell I was. But I had gotten back to the job on this following Thursday, and at lunchtime we're all sitting around, eating lunch, and guys sitting on piles of bricks, scaffolding, just like guys do, shooting the bull. And I'm standing up there telling the story, and everybody's laughing, having a big old time. Oh, that old duff, he really had a lot of fun. Yo, And one guy didn't laugh. There's a little bricklayer by the name of Eddie Friel. And that afternoon, about 2 o'clock, I was in the shanty, and I was looking at the blueprints or something, and bricklayers were working right above me, and I could see them all up there in the scaffold. And all of a sudden, I saw Eddie put down his tools, put his level in the concrete block, and he walked over to the ladder, and he come down the ladder. I think maybe he was going to the John or something. But he come down the bottom of the ladder, and he came right over to the shed, to me, the office. And he walked into the office, and I had known Eddie for a few years, and I knew he'd had a problem one time with drinking. And he said these words to me. He said, Boomer, he says, I'm an alcoholic. And he says, I belong to AA. Would you like to go to a meeting? Wow. My first reaction was, to get something to hit him with, Brick tongs or a 2x4, something to crush him with. Because I was totally humiliated. For him to think that even associate me with the word alcoholic. Good God Almighty, And you know how we are. I mustered all of them hateful words, all of them stinging words, all of that filth and all of that get even with you. And I got it all down in my gut, and I brought it up here to throw right in his face, and I said, yes. Now, there I was. Can you answer it? I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I didn't even know what the hell AA was. And if I had known what AA was, I wouldn't have went. So who said yes? Who said yes? It certainly wasn't me. It certainly wasn't me. And, I wish I could tell you I went into that meeting that following week, and every guy sat there and heard everything they said. Man, I went out and became DCM, GCM, BVM, and everything else, But I went out with one of them classic losers' quotes as I went out the door. Boy, that's all a lot of shit. That's just about how I felt. I was 24 years old. Only guy I knew at the meeting was an iron worker foreman, worked for American Bridge and Iron. And he and I had a personality clash from the day we were both born. His name was McGinnis. And me and him could never seem to be on a project more than 3 days. When bang, we were at each other, And one of us would wind up sucking on soup out of a straw for a week after that, Guys used to take bets on when me and McGinnis would get in it, And And to this day, he's on AA to this day. And we've tried to think back, why did me and him always fight? And we don't know. But he was at that meeting, and I remember seeing him. And you had to leave the hall. There was only one door out of the hall, the back of the hall. And McGinnis was standing back there like that. And I figured, oh, boy, just as I go out, that son, you're going to blindside me or something, you're going to let me have one just going out the door. So I sort of went out sideways like that, And when I got face to face with him, he just looked at me and he said, well, hot shot. He said, what'd you think of the meeting? And I said what any loser would say. I said, it's a great place for you. Your flyer's on. James Trannon, you have just entered a foot race between you and the Beaumont towing service. No. Please call at the front desk. James Trannon. Trahan. James T. And there's a phone number here for you. You want me to read it off, or? Joe, with an E. In case your wife's here. 722-2704. All right. So McGinnis said to me, what do you think of that meeting, hotshot? And I said, it's a great place for assholes like you, so you better keep coming around here, And then he said, you know what he'd said. He said, that's exactly what I thought a hot guy like you would say. He says, well, let me tell you something. Go on out there and do some more drinking and get yourself a story. And he says, and if you don't die, you don't wind up in an institution for the rest of your life, and these doors do happen to remain open, and you're strong enough and agile enough to walk and crawl back, then come on back. And that's the first time I did exactly what I was told in AA, I had to go out there as you had to go out there. I had to go out there and do my thing. I had to suffer all of that pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. I had to come to that time, that moment of final defeat, that moment that's talked about in the book, where it says, generally a dilemma precedes our decision as to whether to continue on in our madness or to reach out for recovery. And I'm a student of words. I've been on a self-educating program for many, many years now. I pick 2 words on a daily basis out of the newspaper, 2 words that I don't really understand, or 2 words that I'd like to understand a little bit more about. And then I take them 2 words home, and I have about 15 or 16 dictionaries. And I look them all up in these dictionaries, because many of our dictionaries have different definitions of words. And then after I get them all, I go to a Roget's Thesaurus, and I see how many different ways I can use that word. And then I try to use it as often as I can that day in my daily conversation. So for about the past 20 years, I've sort of learned a lot of the words, and I'm interested in words. Let me tell you the most interesting book in the world to read, and don't snicker. The dictionary. Most interesting book in the world to read. It's got a lot of pictures in it. You can understand everything. What you don't understand, it tells you what it is. So whenever I see words that fascinate me, I look them up. And I'll never forget the first time I saw the word dilemma. It's used twice in our program. It's also used in the big book where it says lack of power was our dilemma. And dilemma's an exciting word. Something's going to happen, one of them kind of words, And I looked that up in a dictionary, and I couldn't quite understand what the hell the dictionary had to say about it. And at that time, we had a school teacher in our group, Paul. And so one night after the meeting, we was going through the parking lot, and I said, Paul, I says, tell me in my language, that I'll understand, what the hell dilemma means. So he thought for a minute. He knew my problem. And he said, well, Duff, he says, a dilemma is when you have the opposite answer for the same question, but both answers are valid. And I figured, this guy's going into early male menopause or something. How the hell can you have opposite answers for the same question? But I know now And I'm quite sure you know. Or you will know once I recall how I remembered it. Opposite answers for the same question. And they're both right. That dilemma that preceded my decision came on West Madison Street, which is Chicago's Skid Row. A filthy, rotten place. I don't see nothing funny about Skid Rows. I hear a lot of comics, make jokes about Skid Row, and they talk funny little poems. I was there for a year and a half, and I never saw anything funny on Skid Row. Men and women died there every day, got killed there every day, got their heads kicked in every day, got their teeth kicked out every day. And only time I heard anybody that sounded like they was laughing would be somebody in one of them weird death-sounding screeches that was just going into a convulsion or a seizure or something like that. Nothing funny about it, And this is that dilemma. And I had relegated myself to that silent-type drinking, And any of you that have been on the street know exactly what I'm talking about. At 6 o'clock in the morning, there's no need anymore for oral communication, You're a shuffler now. Stop with you. You're a shuffler, and you just shuffle in there, And you belly up to that bar, and that scumhead behind there, he's been sober for 2 days, so he got a job, And he's waiting for you to get into your pocket and come up with 15 of anything, Canadian pennies, buttons, anything that's going to give you 15 cents, because in those days that's about 4 ounces of wine cost you 15 cents. And I can recall that morning so well. I was in a sleaze bag of a joint called Big Rothschilds, and I was sitting, and we're not dumb. We're not dumb, and there's so many misconceptions about alcoholics, A lot of people say, oh, the poor alcoholic, he's the last one to know it. Like hell. You and I knew long before anybody else that there was something wrong with the way we drank and the way we were living. Maybe it wasn't an alcoholic, but there was something wrong, And if you've never been on the street, I'll tell you a little secret about Skid Row drunks, and I'm quite sure any of the other brothers in this room that were down there know exactly what I'm talking about. Every morning, and that's how you can tell the alcoholic from the common drunk on Skid Row. Alcoholics always cry before they have their first drink. Always. And I'll tell you why I believe that is. What differentiates the alcoholic from the common drunk on Skid Row. Because, you see, even though the guy's an alcoholic and he's torn himself down below hell, there's still that little spark of decency left inside of his gut. Enough decency that causes that guilt. And that guilt dwells up in his head and forces out them tears. But once he has the drink, it's a different deal. It's a different deal. Then everything is all right. Everything is all right, But you sit there, and you've sat there, and it don't have to be on Skid Row. It can be any place, You sit there and you look at that damn drink, and they got 4 ounces of wine poured into a 7-ounce wax cup. Just so you'll spill it all over yourself or break the goddamn glass. And you look there, and you're crying like hell. And the tears are running down your eyes, and because you look at that thing and you know that if you keep drinking it, it's going to kill you. You know that. If I drink this son of a bitch, it's going to kill me. But then at the back of the head, something else is saying, but if you don't drink it, you're going to die. And that's the opposite answers for both. And they're both right. If I don't drink it, I'm going to die. And if I do drink it, it'll kill me. And that's why you have come to a time when you have to make a decision. Make a decision, as that book said, either reach out for recovery or continue on in the madness. I didn't make it then. The last drink I ever had was given to me on West Madison Street, and I say given to it with reservation. Ironically, it was given to me by a member of AA, too. But it wasn't given in any great spirit of camaraderie or anything like that. He poured a half a pint of some kind of crap into me while I was convulsing blood and had been in DTs for about 4 days and holed up in a little hotel room called the Mohawk. And somehow or other, something must have scared the hell out of me in that room because I had smashed a mirror behind the door and I pushed the bed up against the door, and I was just a raving maniac when he was called to come in there. And being streetwise, he knew the only thing that would slow me down, and he poured that drink into me. And that's the last drink I've ever had, and I pray on a daily basis, for Christ's sake, that I never have to go back to that, And I remember that drink, But I think so many times, of why the people like you and I, as I said, people in this room who are going to return to drinking. Why the hell would we, with all of the knowledge that we have, why would we want to return to drinking? But yet we do, and that's the insidiousness of it. And the book tells us the greatest obsession of every abnormal drinker is the persistence in an insane illusion that somehow, some way, someday, I'd once more be able to control and enjoy my drinking. I could become a normal drinker. And how insane that is. I don't believe there's an alcoholic who walks the face of this earth who could tolerate for more than 2 seconds the conditions that surround normal drinking. Have you watched any normal drinkers? They're enough to drive you to drink. I watch them all the time, you know. They do their damnedest things. They leave half of a drink on the bar and go home. And listen to them sometime. No thanks. I've had enough. Two's it for me. I gotta drive. Let's eat. But isn't that a shame, huh? Because it's good that we can laugh at ourselves, but there's a lot of tragedy in that laughter. For some of us, and certainly there have been people like us who have paid dearly for those attempts at trying to become a normal drinker. They paid with their lives because, you know, it's different the way you and I drink now. You know, we don't drink like them social guys anymore, you know. Social guy has no problem getting a drink. You know, walks through and says, give me a double shot of VO and some water. And then they fix it right up, you know, and he takes out his pocket and throws down a couple of bucks or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. They take the money and that's it, and give him back his change, and that's it. Well, you and I do it about the same way. And they go through the same motions, you know, they get the same kind of glass out of the thing, and put a couple of cubes of ice in there, go into the speed rack, splash in 2 VOs, you know, and a little bit of water, put a little stick in there, and put it over in front of you. You ever wonder why they say good luck? They never do that when you get pizza or anything else. But then we go to put up the money, you know, we got to put up a couple of bucks for the drink, the house, the wife, the job, the kids, self-respect. You got to put up everything you've got. And you have no idea what the hell they're going to pick up. No idea what he's going to pick up. Maybe today he's just going to take the price of the drink. Oh, and your job. Maybe tomorrow it takes your wife and your kids. The house. You don't know. And that's what it costs for you and I to say, my name is Joe and I'm an alcoholic. Because I'm admitting that I have no idea what the hell is going to happen the next time I put into my system a drink, you know. And then I get obsessed sometimes, you know, about that normal drinking. I'll confess to you a little bit. When I drank, I didn't drink in such nice places. I was never chasing chicks around or anything like that. My priority was who poured the biggest shot and who was the cheapest, you know. That's all I gave a damn about, you know. I never knew that there were bars that had rugs in them until I come to AA. I didn't know that. Carpet, you know what I mean, lounges they call them. And I like to go through them. In airports, they're always red and black in the airports. And they got nice drapes in there, and it looks nice in there. You know, I was in one not too long ago, come back from an AA thing. And me and the guy I was with, we going to go in and eat, and then they pulled that heavy on us. You know, sorry, all the tables are busy right now. Would you have a drink? I'll call you in a minute. So we're standing at the bar having a ginger ale or a Coke or something. And I'm taking it all in because I liked it, you know, nice carpet and little girls running around, little tight stuff on, you know. And right off to my right where I was standing was one of them little tiny round tables, little cute little round table, you know. Looked like something my mother would have put a fern on, you know, something like that. And all of a sudden, a young couple coming up with skinny-ass skier types, you know, about 24 years old. They came in, they sat down by that little tiny table, you know, and I sort of and I got taken up with the guy right away. Because I couldn't hear what the hell he ordered, but when it came in the biggest damn glass you ever saw in your life. Great big glass, looked like a candy dish, you know, and gee, I got all wrapped up in that, you know, and it had all sorts of things in it. It had olive in it, it had a lemon in it, an onion in it, a dead fish was inside it, right? It was loaded with a whole lot of things, you know. And boy, I'm there and I'm watching them. And I'm waiting for them to take a hang at it, you know, and they started to talk. And they kept talking, and they kept talking. And he kept hitting that olive with this little toothpick. And she put that onion in her mouth and go. I know it wasn't as long as I thought, but it seemed like 8 years to me. I damn near said, for Christ's sake, drink that, will you? Because I believe if you can drink, you should drink, you know. Another time I was coming back from Atlanta. I heard some people at the table over here talking before. You know how you get on these highs on weekends like this, and it's a big high, and all of a sudden, Sunday afternoon, all the air comes out of the balloon, and we go back to reality, you know. And whenever I'm at a 3-day deal like this, I want a high to stay on, you know. I want to keep it on. And so I had to catch a plane. It was 10 after 7 the next morning, coming through Dallas to go to San Francisco. And I still kept my badge on, you know, because I was hoping, maybe some of them guys from Texas would be on this plane, you know. We could laugh it up, lie it up a little bit more for a couple of more hours, you know. And I'm sitting on the plane, and nobody gets on that looks familiar. Nobody says anything about the badge. And I got an aisle seat in one of them 3-seat sections, and all of a sudden, one of the great big Texas guys, you know, about 19'6", you know, big husky guy, big buckle on, you know, and all hat, you know, and he come in there rumbling in there like that, you know, and he had the window seat, and he climbed over me, boom, he got down in there, you know. About 10 after 7, here comes coffee, tea, and me, you know. And I like to punch them in the mouth every time they say this, you know. They say, would you care for a drink? Man, oh, man, nobody ever said that to me when I wanted a drink, you know. So I said, no, thank you. I said, but I'd like some black coffee with sugar. And I'm down because, you know, the convention's over and it's... And so she says to Tex in by the window, she said, would you care for a drink? I'm waiting to hear what he's going to say, you know. He said, I think I'll have some coffee and sugar, too. Wham, boy, the little light went on. A. But I wanted to play it cool, right? I didn't want to come right on out, come out strong, you know. Might be a GSR or something like that, get all upset, you know. So when she come with the coffee, she hands me his to give to him. And I give him his, and I looked at him, and I says, easy does it. And he just sort of looked at me, and he looked down at my badge, and he didn't say nothing. And he lit up a cigarette, and he dropped his lighter. It rolled over by me, and I picked it up, and I says, first things first. And he looked down at that badge again, and I had given him a big wink. And I forgot my badge had said San Francisco on it. He put his little tray up like that. He said in the way you people talk funny, you know, he says, y'all trying to tell me something? And I said, we belong to the same club. What in the hell goddamn club you talking about? I says, AA. Well, he must have knew what that meant because he went up like a rocket. He hit his head on the overhead thing. And at the top of his lungs, everybody in the plane turned around and he said, God damn, they all hell! You're trying to call me an alcoholic? And And I'm saying, cool it, forget it. He said, what the hell makes you think I'm an alcoholic? I said, because you ordered coffee. He said, I like coffee. I said, but you didn't have to have, you could have had a drink. He said, I didn't want a drink, I wanted the coffee. I said, but you're not an alcoholic, so you should have had the drink. I said, the reason I had the coffee is because I'm an alcoholic. And I said, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I'd have a whole lot to drink, you know. He got up and got the hell out of there, you know. He's getting all sorts of weird things like that. Well, the time finally came, of course, in my drinking career when we reach out, and I wanted what you had, you know, but I'm no different than most of the people. You try to make this program as difficult as you can, you know. And that's understandable because when we face this program for the first time, it has to be uncomfortable because it's in direct contrast to how we really want to live, you know. And we fight it. And I'm a firm believer that as long as your desire to drink is stronger than your desire not to drink, this program will always be difficult. But the moment that your desire to not drink becomes stronger than your desire to drink, that moment the clarity comes that exposes the simpleness of our program. And what a beautiful way it is. A way of life. A way of life. Now, I didn't know nothing about living. I knew about dying. I knew nothing about living. And I was no different than most. I came in here fighting them steps. And I can remember getting up at a meeting one night saying, oh, my God, these steps is horrible, you know. And now I look back and I laugh, you know. I was talking to some lads out there in the hallway prior to coming in here this evening, and this one guy was telling me, he says, you know, we just had a meeting over in where the town is he come from, and he says, the consensus of opinion, he says, in our group, he says that once, with the exception of the first step, that the most difficult step in AA is the fourth step, where you make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. And I couldn't believe him when he said that. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, the whole group agreed on that. My God, how can that be? The fourth step of this program is taken by all of us to get to this program. You take that step before you ever even go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what brought you here. Somewhere in your latter days of your drinking experience in a hospital or jail or at home or someplace, you took a look at what the hell was going on in your life. And your presence here tonight tells me that what you saw was going on in your life wasn't exactly what you wanted to be going on. And thank God you must have said to yourself or to somebody, I think I'll do something about that. And here you are. That's the fourth step of this program. And now, when you disclose the simplicity of it, they all are simple. Steps 1, 2, and 3, my God almighty. We're masters at them. We're masters at them. They're sort of spiritually oriented. Because you take them on your knees. And usually take them in the morning, as the gentleman was talking last night, you know, about the commode. You know, placing that flaming temple down on that cool porcelain. Jesus, right. And you see them magic words, you know. American Standard, you know. I saw them so much I thought it was my name, you know. American Standard. Now, you know about them mornings, and it's in them mornings when it all comes out, man. You know, you think you're gonna die. Jesus Christ, they're gonna die. And you try to throw up, and you can't throw up, and you do throw up, and it comes out your nose, your mouth, your ears, and you're shaking, and you're trembling, and everything's heavy, and it's cold, and it's cold, Jesus. And you're either vocalizing or subconsciously you're saying, oh, Jesus Christ, I can't get over this. Jesus Christ, got me on my goddamn head. I'm going crazy, my God almighty. What the hell am I going to do? I can't go on like this. Oh, God, help me, I'll do anything. That is step 1, 2, and 3 of this. No big deal. No big deal. And most of us in this room have told every bartender in our neighborhood our stories, so what the hell the fifth step is this man do, you know? So really, to look at the steps, they're rather simple. They're rather simple, you know? But I had to stay away from all them pitfalls. There are a lot of pitfalls when you begin to initiate your sobriety. You can run with the wrong crew, you can hear the wrong things, you can do the wrong things unless you got proper guidance from proper sponsors. And sometimes, you know, as I say, I was blessed, man. I had 3 cops. They watched me, you know, and I never got out of line. Couldn't get out of line. Thank you, man, here. But I see now, you know, and I hear things now, and I think sometimes, and those of you who have been here for a while will know what I mean, I think we all go through a stage in AA where we sort of become AA cops. You know, we try to protect the program. We think somebody's lousing it up, you know, and we want to take it upon ourselves to get it straightened out, which is a joke, you know. And I went through that stage, and sometimes I still do, you know, and sometimes you hear things. I just heard it in a meeting in Southern California the early part of this week, you know, and sometimes you hear things that just make you crawl. Now, I'm going to say something here, and if I offend anybody in here, that's tough. You know, that's tough. But there are still some idiots in AA. Still some idiots in AA. And if you listen to them close enough, they generally give themselves away. Because they say things that only idiots would say. And one of the most common things that these idiots say is, there are no musts in AA. You hear that all over the United States. You hear different people, and people not with only 1 day of sobriety. I've heard people with 30 years of sobriety say that. There are no musts. Well, let me tell you, and most of you probably know it anyhow. I can show you, if you've got the time, in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, where the word must is used on 57 different occasions. And it's spelled out M-U-S-T. It doesn't say you had better, or if you choose, or when you're ready. It says you must. Right off the bat, I'll tell you one of them. It says sponsorship is an experience you must not miss. But there are 57 places at least where it says that word. But you continuously hear these jackasses running around saying, there are no musts on this program. Why would anybody say that? When we're in a life and death situation. People are going to live and die many times on the words that come out of your mouth. So be damn sure you know what the hell you are talking about. I got so upset about that word must that I went to the dictionaries. Because I got to thinking, Jesus, maybe it means something other than what I think, you know. Because that's true. Any of you that are intellectual people know that many of the English words have different definitions. And must had 3 of them. In the dictionary, must is defined in 3 different ways. One, of course, is the way we're familiar with, the absolute demand. You must. And I really should have known the second living in the wine country, because must is how you describe the first crush of the grape before it's fermented. The must of the grape, they call that. You'll never believe the other one. Must is also how you define the male elephant when it is in sexual heat. It's in a state of must. Now, I know this program teaches us to be open-minded. And I've done the very best that I can. But there's no way in the world you could convince me that 52 years ago when those men and women like you and I were sitting down writing these steps in this book, that they were least bit interested in grapes or the sexual problems of elephants. And did you ever hear somebody say, take this program cafeteria style? What a joke that would be. I ask any of you mothers, or any of you who have children who go to school, and have a hot lunch program at the school. I guess they have that in Texas, don't the kids eat in school? Can you imagine saying to your kid, just take whatever you want, son. For 52 weeks, he'd eat pizza. And he'd die. He would need none of the things that he needed to eat because he was left to his own choice. And if you and I were left to our choice, the meetings would be 5 minutes long. You'd be able to drink light wines before each dinner. And the last Saturday of the month, you'd toast the secretary with a little champagne, if we were left to our devices. It cannot be done that way. The book lays it all out, and that's why it's referred to as a text, basic text of recovery. It's not a novel. Text means a continuous source of learning. And you refer back to this book all the time, all of the time. So how do we wind up like this? Why do we wind up when we got to come to Beaumont, Texas, eat ham and listen to Dave and get the hell scared out of you by that big Rick, for Christ's sake? What makes us do that? What makes us do that? I've tried to figure it out, and I don't know if I have figured it out. But I'll tell you what I've come upon. I know today why I don't drink and why I don't use. I told you I live in the Napa Valley, and it's a very Italian sort of a place and a lot of French because of the wineries and everything. And my belly should tell you that I love Italian food. And myself and a few of my friends have been eating lunch in the same Italian restaurant for the past 20 years. On the days during the week when the tourists aren't there and if we're home or something. And we sit at a round table, something like this, a little bit bigger. There's 12 of us. We're like 12 old ladies, We're picky as hell, We sit in the same damn chairs, and we get upset if somebody takes our chair, and, it's really a sick deal, but we're all good friends. We're all good friends. And I'm the only alcoholic in the group. The other guys are all vintners and wine people big names in the wine business. Robert Mondavi, Louis Martini, and Charlie Krug, and guys like that. Big, big wine men. And we sit around this table and we laugh, tell jokes, just like any other 12 guys. We have a lot of fun. And they all, of course, drink, and it's common practice in our part of the country. They bring their finest wines from their own wineries, and they set them up on the table, and they all switch around and drink them, and stuff like that. But they all know I don't drink. The old lady that's been waiting on us for years always turns my glass up, and that's fine. So it's always comfortable being with them. But on occasion, they have a guest. One of them will have a guest from Australia or France or Germany or some damn place. And they always grab the extra chair from right behind where I sit because there's another table there. So the guest usually winds up sitting alongside of me. And that's all right, until he notices that I'm not drinking. Then he says the inevitable question, don't you drink? And I say, no, not today. Now, that would be fine. But they're not satisfied with that. It takes about 5 minutes to go by. Then they say, why? Well, I don't want to stand up and say, well, my name is Gene and I'm an alcoholic. I'm not obligated to tell you what happened, what it was like now, what I'm like now, And for many years, I had to lie. Because I have always known, it seems, for a long time, why I no longer use or drink. But because I was limited in my education or my ability to convey my thoughts to other people, I never knew how to tell anybody why I didn't, And I don't drink because I'm a member of AA. Hell, I drank plenty as a member of AA. And I don't drink because I'm an alcoholic. I drank plenty as an alcoholic. And I don't drink because I can't. My problem is I can, and it's your problem, too. I'll tell you why I don't drink and how I found it out. I was allowed to share an AA experience in a town in California called Stockton, California. Stockton is a nothing, It's about as exciting as an empty paint can, There's nothing in Stockton. For excitement in Stockton on a Saturday, they go through the work clothes department of the J.C. Penney store. That's a big deal in Stockton, So I'm holed up at this motel in the afternoon waiting for this banquet that they were going to have that night. I think it was the 40th year of something, AA. And I'm trying to kill time, and I'm watching the television, and one of them Saturday afternoon classics was on, Shirley Temple Makes It with Godzilla, or some crap like that. And all of a sudden, the commercial came on. And I'm quite sure most of you have seen this commercial, because it went national. And how ironic, because it advertised beer. It showed a bunch of young lads, 20, 21 years old, in cut-off blue jeans, funny little T-shirts, weird little hats. And they were on sailing schooners in San Francisco Bay on one of our beautiful summer days, which usually comes in October in San Francisco. And all of these boats were out on the bay, and they looked like little butterflies flitting around. And they zoomed in with the camera onto one of these ships. And here these guys were running up and down the deck, climbing up the mast, diving into the bay, swinging on the lines, just jackassing around, having a big old time. And then the commercial came on, and it said, you only go around once. Grab all of the gusto you can. And I didn't know what the hell gusto meant. And I went out to the desk at the hotel, and they had a dictionary, and they lent it to me. And I looked it up, and it says, gusto, slang expression for living. You only go around once. Grab all of the living you can. And those thoughts are on my mind every morning when I make that decision as to whether to put something in my arm or my nose or my mouth. Because there's only one thing out there called life. There's only one. And it's the most precious thing that any of us in this room or any other room will ever experience. Life. And there's some hard, tough rules about life. 1 to a customer. That's all you get. It makes no difference who you are, what you are, the color of your skin, the choice of your church. It makes no difference whether you're rich, poor, dumb, or smart. You're only going to get one. One time through is all you get. It's a one-way ticket. And life is not like a VCR. You can't put it on rewind, fast forward, or hold a pause. Life starts and it goes on at its pace. Not yours and not mine, at its pace. And there's some very cold facts about life. This'll ruin your night's sleep. The moment that life starts, it begins to get shorter. Every unit of time that goes by is a portion of your life that is over. Whether it be a minute, an hour, a day, a week, or whatever unit you choose. As it goes by, it has brought you that much closer to the end of your life. Now, as opposed to last night at midnight, if you retired at midnight last night, and you retire tonight at midnight, you have just used up 24 hours of your life. 24 valuable hours. 24 hours that you will plead for someday. And what did you do with them? Did you waste any of those minutes, those precious minutes, on hate? On envy? How jealous were you? Did you waste any time getting even? Or did you go out there and just grab that life and live every second of that life? Because if you're like me, and I'm quite sure you are, I want every bit of that life I can get. Damn it all, I want to go every place there is to go. I want to see everything there is to see. I want to hear everything that's ever been said. I want to read everything that's ever been written. Damn it, I want it all. And there's nothing really wrong with wanting it all, as long as I have enough common sense to know that I'm not going to get it all. But that's what makes you and I much luckier than them so-called normal people. Because you see, you and I know something that they don't know. You and I already know that we can get more out of life clean and sober and straight, then we can never get out of using and drinking because we've already tried that. They haven't. You and I and people like you and I are in the most envious position in life. We're where you've always wanted to be. We're where everybody wants to be. How many times in your past have you said, Jesus Christ, if I only had a chance to do it all over again with what I know now? Well, here you are, Jack. Here you are. And everything is ours. Everything is ours. But if you were like me, perhaps you think that I'm not good enough for that. And Chico made mention of that, and John made mention of that. Am I worthy of you? God, I tossed that around for a long time. Because in my opinion, and justifiable, I was a scumhead. I would have jack-rolled my grandmother if I knew she was old and a quarter. I figured the whole world owed me a living, and today was payday, and I wanted it paid up, today. And I had a very bad attitude. And you kept referring me to God. I immaturely thought that if God found out I was here, my God, he'd do something about that. He either disband AA or he'd drop me right in my spot, because he wouldn't want anybody like me to cancerize or fester a group of people like you. And then here we are now in Texas, come to think of it. You hear constantly in AA, keep going to the meetings and soon you'll hear what you'll have to hear. And I was having this struggle with the reaffirming of my own faith in God as I understood him. When I heard a guy talk, the guy who had talked right down here in Brownsville, Texas, many years ago, his name was Talbot Haygood. And Talbot told a little story that I swore to God he was talking about me. He put me in that frame of mind that you had been in. How the hell did he know that about me, He told a story about a sharecropping family that lived in Georgia, trying to scrape a living out of the soil in Georgia. And if you've ever been in Georgia, you've got to know what a job that is. And this family really had nothing. They enjoyed none of the luxuries that you and I almost take for granted today. But each year they'd scrape, and they'd get enough to get by and to buy whatever seeds or whatever they needed for the coming year. And they were satisfied. And then one year, as it was wont to happen, after all the seed was purchased, the money was in, the harvest was done, and they discovered they had a $5 bill left over. And they were a very close, loving family. And wisely they knew that wouldn't make much sense to divide the $5 up amongst the five of them. That perhaps it would be best that they buy one gift that the entire family could share together. So after some kind of discussion, they decided to buy a mirror. This family had never owned a looking glass. No one in this family had ever seen his or her own true self. They all knew the beauty in each other, but no one had ever seen or been exposed to his own image. So it was a very exciting day, the day that the mirror arrived. And they gathered in the kitchen around the table, and out of respect for the father as the head of the family, they let him open the package first. And as he took out the mirror, he looked at his family, and he knew all of the beauty in his wife and in his two children, his daughter and his son. And he looked into the mirror, and he saw himself for the first time. And he did exactly what mature gentlemen would do. He blushed a little bit and gave his nose a couple of pokes and sort of smiled and tugged on his overall strap and blushed a little. And And he turned and he handed the mirror to his wife, who knew the beauty of her husband and of her son and her daughter. And when she looked into the mirror, she too did exactly what mature women would do. She blushed and smiled a little bit and fooled with the back of her hair and adjusted the collar on her hair, on her house coat, and sort of smiled and fooled with her specs. And then she turned and she handed the mirror to her teenage daughter, who knew the beauty of her parents and of her little brother. And the teenage girl did exactly what teenage girls would do. She giggled and tee-heed a little bit and fooled with her curls and blushed and giggled a little bit and fixed a ribbon in her hair and tee-heed and put her hair down. And then she turned and she handed the mirror to her little 7-year-old brother, who knew all of the beauty in his family. Now, her little brother, when he had only been 1 year old, had been standing alongside of his daddy while his daddy was milking a cow. And the cow had struck out and kicked this little boy right in the face. And what was supposed to have been a little boy's face was nothing but a mess of twisted, ugly flesh. It was horrible and it was grotesque. And when that innocent little child looked into the mirror and saw what the hell was supposed to be his face, he just fell back in terror. And he didn't understand. And when little boys don't understand, they go directly to their mother. And he went to his mother tearfully and he says, Mama, I don't understand. Have I always been this ugly? And she said, No, you haven't always been this ugly. And he said, But Mama, he says, I'm so ugly. How can you love me? And she said what any mother would say. Because you're mine. And that's the relationship that I have now with God as I understand Him. For it's only He besides myself that has known me in my total ugliness. When my family, with just cause, had to turn away from me because of my ugliness. When my friends, like yours, had to turn away from me because of my ugliness, I stood as many of us, my back to the wall. And then I recalled what those men and women 52 years ago had said in that book. They said it when they gave us the second and third of the three pertinent ideas. They said that we believe that no human power can relieve our alcoholism. And then they said, but God could and would if He was sought. And so as directed by our steps through prayer and through meditation to maintain a conscious contact with God, I sought God. And God found me. And when He found me, He picked out one of you. And He named you Bob. And He told you to find me. And you found me in an institution in Illinois. And you came upon me and you took me. And as a result of that, my life has changed. I am totally grateful to you and to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because on the day that Bob found me, he let me know the cost of my sobriety. He let me know that this program was not free. That this program was contingent. If this program had been free, the Serenity Prayer would have said, God give. It does not say God give. It says God grant. And if you're saying to yourself, well, they mean the same, they don't. Give means to pass on unconditionally. To grant means here it is yours, and it is yours to keep as long as you adhere to certain conditions. And those conditions are outlined in the 12 suggested steps of recovery. Here are the steps that we took. So when Bob handed me this great gift of sobriety, that's what he said to me. Take this gift. And if you're new, reach out for it tonight, because it abounds in this room. It is right in this room right now. And take it. And as I took it, Bob said to me, Duff, take this gift and protect it with your life, because it is your life. And hold it close to your heart and protect it. And as you hold it, take from it its love and its understanding and its compassion. And just do some of those things. And if you do, sooner than you expect, and certainly much sooner than you deserve, you'll be able to stand up and rise amongst your fellows again. And all we're going to ask you is that on that day, on that night or whatever, where you can walk once more with some semblance of dignity, we ask you only to bring that gift back. Thank you very much for having me.